All right, a warm welcome to everyone, and thank you very much for joining today's live session on why RISE with SAP is the most secure way to run your ERP. So, as experts for today's session, I am actually very happy to be joined by Gabriele Fiata, who is the Head of Security Market Strategy for RISE with SAP, as well as Thoden van Velzen, who is the Technical Advisor at the Office of the Chief Security Officer. And last but not least, Roland Costea, who is the Chief Information Security Officer for RISE with SAP. So you, the participants, can feel free to address your questions by using the chat window, and we will answer them right after the presentation part. So this session is actually part of an entire RISE with SAP series. So in the description of this video, you can find the link leading to the playlist where you can access all past as well as the upcoming sessions. So without any further ado, I would like to hand over to today's experts, and Gabriele, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Sinan. Can you confirm you can see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining. Today, Roland, Jay, and myself will talk you through our mission to help more and more companies staying secure and compliant and resilient in the cloud transformation. And when it comes to cloud transformation, many companies are turning to RISE with SAP, our Cloud ERP offering for mid-sized to large enterprises. Of course, at SAP, we work for and with companies of all sizes, different compliance requirements, different security maturity levels, and also different expectations. Some of our customers expect from us, a lot of security and compliance, and they all have different requirements. But I think what's common across all our customers base is that collaboration and mutual objective to enhance security and compliance for businesses. Security and compliance, it's a topic that I'm very passionate about, having worked more than 20 years in the industry. I've been a security professional, a control professional, an audit professional. And I have to say, as many of you know and have seen, that our industry has changed a lot. Many things have changed within the years. To start with the first one, the impact of security has significantly increased. If I think about the impact that a misconfiguration that I did 20 years ago had on my business compared to now, I really see a huge difference. As well as the second thing that has changed, that security is not a solo game anymore. Companies are looking for more and more collaborations from their ERP providers and trusted partners in order to ensure that they can really discover gaps and security breaches as best as possible. And the third thing that has changed is the demand for security resources. There is a huge gap between the demand of cybersecurity professionals and actually the resources available in the market. And what's interesting actually to see from a research that you can see on the right side of the screen, it's the number of things that internal security teams are actually not able to properly do because of missing resources. And it's not just about technical security maintenance, like patching systems or configuring security for systems. For me, actually the most crucial and most interesting one of the areas out of those studies are actually the first two that we see. Not enough time for proper risk assessment and management, as well as not having enough time to put proper governance processes in place for security risk management. And this is where I personally think companies should really focus on with their own internal security teams, because This is where strategically security teams can actually support business leaders to understand how security can enable them to better achieve their strategic business objectives. So I think it's top of mind of every security organization to take a step back, look at the big picture, and understand if all controls are in place, or the majority of controls are in place to avoid company achieving those strategic business objectives. So when we look at security and resilience strategies, and by talking with different customers, researchers, and analysts, we realize that those need to be based on three key factors. The first one is defending against cyber attacks. Again, this has changed a lot in the years. Now attacks are much more sophisticated, sometimes even leveraging AI. The second one is compliance. GDPR, DORA, NIS2, just to mention some. Those are all new regulations that companies need to comply to. So there are regulations, new directives, etc., and companies are under constant pressure to comply to those. And the third one is mitigating the skills shortage, especially for the repetitive and time-consuming tasks, so that, again, internal security teams can really focus on the more strategic security efforts which are required for your business to achieve the strategic objectives. So why Cloud ERP and how Cloud ERP helps? Now, it's very difficult to have a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to Cloud ERP, because, again, we work with companies of all different sizes. But it's interesting to see the results of research from IDC, where they interviewed a number of ERP companies, asking them what will be or what was the top strategic reason for them to go to Cloud ERP. And it's interesting to see the better security, compliance, privacy, and risk posture on average was the #1 reason for companies to move to Cloud ERP. And another very interesting fact is that on average, Cloud ERP users seem to trust their systems more than on-premises users. So very interesting results from the IDC survey. And again, like I said before, you could be in a situation where your maturity level is very high, and maybe some of the companies don't resonate with those numbers, but it's very interesting to see that on average, those are the results of the study. So companies are definitely looking at Cloud ERP to enhance their security, compliance, privacy, and risk posture. Now, when we look at RISE with SAP, then we thought, okay, how do we meet those three main crucial factors and strategies? So when it comes to defend against cyber attacks, we believe that it's very important to improve your operational security processes when we can, but also look at cost efficiencies. And I am a security, let's say an old school security professional, and I will always prioritize security versus cost. However, I also know that when we talk with our leaders, with our business leaders, they always look at cost efficiency. So this is probably one of the main reasons why they want to move to the cloud, is because of cost efficiency. So we need to realize, and companies need to realize as well, that security for most of the companies is still a cost center. And being able to demonstrate how that cost center can actually become more efficient and also support the company in achieving the business objectives, I think is very important for all of us as security professionals. To just share one statistic with you, which we're quite proud of, is that our cloud security posture management compliance rate is above average. And also, when we look at compliance, another thing that by talking with a different number of customers, researchers, and analysts, we understood that is something that we really need to focus on more and more, is all the internal controls and also external audits that we perform throughout the year. So currently we perform about 130 internal and external audits throughout the year, and we always keep and push for increasing the number. So we take, of course, controls and external audits very seriously. And lastly, mitigating the skills shortage. Our mission, our objective is support our companies with our SAP security experts, but also our ecosystem of partners that can provide support from a security and compliance perspective. Just think about the number of systems that we manage. Currently, we manage about 120,000 cloud systems across 26 different industries, including critical infrastructures, where, of course, security and compliance is top of mind. Now, for the ones of you that are not really familiar with the shared responsibility model and how that changes when you go on a cloud ERP model, I think all of you are familiar with what you do on-premise, or what you do if you are on an infrastructure as a service model where you directly interact with your hyperscaler. You basically have to manage the full stack, also from a security perspective. Yes, at the infrastructure level, there could be some tasks that you hand over to the hyperscaler, but you still have to communicate and own that communication channel with them. Now, simply speaking, and then Roland and Jay can expand on this, but when it comes to RISE with SAP, from infrastructure to the applicational technical layer, SAP takes care about the majority of the security tasks, while the security teams of the customer and the companies itself focuses on the security of the business processes and the application functional layer. And this really enables then security teams to free up the time from time-consuming and repetitive tasks at the system foundational level, while they can actually focus on security, which is much more strategic and is really tailored to their business needs. And these are some of the benefits that not only you as a security professional will be able to see, like the one of handing over the time-consuming repetitive task to SAP and collaborate with SAP to ensure that those are done as you expect, but also your business leaders will see how they can actually rely on you or on your time to perform high value activities. They will be able to see a more predictable cost of security ownership as well, because they will be able to rely more on SAP resources. They will be able to rely on always-on surveillance with the people working across all different time zones, and basically a round-the-clock approach, and also having some predefined security settings that are set up to ensure that at least the baseline security is there to help protecting your business. And with that, I will hand it over to Roland to explain a bit more on actually what we do and how we do it.
Thanks, Gabriele. So if you go a bit more into the shared responsibility model from security perspective, as Gabs explained, we are managing the whole stack up to the application layer, and it was basically structured into the infra layer or even the OS layer, and then the database layer. And from the application perspective, we stop at what we call the administrative client of that layer, which is called client 000 in SAP terms. That means whatever is going on top of it, meaning all the business clients, all the business users that every customer manages in their environment and are running their business processes, and the integration with their identity provider, it's still managed by the customer. So RISE with SAP, I would say it's a collaborative model, and I encourage all the new customers or prospective customers to run through these workshops of understanding exactly the R&R and who is doing what piece of the puzzle. From security perspective, I think that there is a default state of what RISE with SAP is, and you can see some examples here on the left. But there is also a way to complement the circle. So we say we stop to what we manage from Client 000 perspective, but there are specific managed services or professional services or CaaS, cloud application services, that we can put on top to complement the circle. So in the end, we want to offer our customers the flexibility to actually give back to SAP more than the default standard. So we partner with different SIs or providers, or SAP is doing by themselves those specific services where the customer can get input and help into how to better secure even the application layer, which is still, from the model perspective, having the ownership on their side. Because in the end, we know better what could be the impact of a patch that gets applied from that layer, how to actually better run the roles and authorizations, or how to define the users, and how to actually build the concept around the SAP security in the best way. And there are also partners out there on the market that actually help with different tool sets to understand the behavior of the SAP application. And we consider them as part of our ecosystem overall to fill in the circle, because in the end, the goal that we together have is to make this as a complete secure delivery. And it's SAP and the customer, it's SAP and the customer and a partner or several partners that could actually fill the overall circle. Now, if you go a bit further, Cabs, to the next slide, and I think that's this here is actually the overall security framework. So before I get into some details and strategic details, I want to say that we operate on the NIST cybersecurity framework, and currently SAP is level 3 certified from NIST CSF perspective. And we practically, let's say, bundle different, when you look in this slide, the security framework, we bundle different components from all the NIST layers into these 6 pillars. But if there is one thing that I would say would be the answer to the question, what is RISE with SAP giving me as a customer from a security perspective, I would say that is speed. And we want to, and we actually focused our strategy around speed and how we can get speed into all the NIST layers. So how we can get speed into the way we identify things, we detect, we protect, we respond, we recover, and overall govern the overall environment. And let me give a bit of insight into what speed means for us. Yeah, so let's start with security monitoring. Yeah, that looks quite simple. Yeah, we have a 24/7 SecMon, and security monitoring center and incident response center, etc. We do a lot of areas that every company is doing. How can we gain more speed into the way we are processing data? We by the way, practically we increased the amount of data that we process year over year, which is and we look for efficiencies, how we can actually process less and actually do more from a security perspective. But in the end, you create rule sets, correlation rules, in the end that goes with an alert in the incident response process. How can you be better into this process? Now, we analyzed and we identified a bit how much time we spend with analysts and security engineers to actually build the detection logics. And that's an area where actually today we invest with AI capabilities to actually be able, with automations and AI, to understand, are we processing the right data feeds from the data sources? Are we on green stage versus the whole TTPs based on, let's say, MITRE-ATT&CK framework? And how can we automate the detection engineering process so that based on the data that we process, we don't spend a lot of time building all the correlation rules, but actually those get injected into our SIM platform based on how the data flows. And of course, there is a fine-tuning process in there, and we analyze, how much of that is actually really efficient from detection perspective. But what I can tell is that we are able to actually make that process around 6x faster than we were doing it 2 years ago. Now, if you think about vulnerability management, then that's a collaboration with our customers, because not being a SaaS offering, we need to actually really well work with our customers to find those downtime windows or agreed, let's say, downtime windows in the contracts that we can actually apply the most patches that would need a downtime or a restart of the application. We can just shut down all the critical core business of the top of the customers that we're managing, and looking actually into patterns of the attacks, understanding how attacks could actually work and how different exploits could actually work in our environment or not work, and trying to build kind of virtual fences in front of systems by focusing on the action. And of course, patching is definitely important, but we may lose some time because business applications need to have, or to wait a period of time that we would say maybe from security perspective is not acceptable. But looking at the action and how to protect against the action is a way to gain speed in an environment that is considered, core business and cannot be impacted that easily on a day-by-day basis. Now, if you think about threat protection, right? Having the right correlation between your XDR and your SIEM solution, and then coming with the right playbooks from orchestration perspective to address most of the needs an IR team would need without going and analyzing all the types of alerts that are generated and all the noise that is there, filter them out automatically and have the right playbooks already defined so that the actions are really taken, most of them in an automatic manner, but a lot of them, or the more important ones, being the focus of the IR team. Now, secure operations for us, because I explained a bit that still the customer owns the users, the business users. Our focus is on the privileged users, which are probably the most important from the administrative perspective, because they actually own the most privileges. And we operate on these three layers from, infra, DB, let's say client 0.0 app layer for us. And of course, we have the environment set it up with jump hosts, different identities, MFA, and, DLP on that layer, how systems can be accessed, session recording and monitoring. But, and we just signed, partnership with a partner, and it was a press release that the end state that we want to go to, and making this more like a current framework plus the roadmap and where we want to go and how we are investing in, is to have more advanced capabilities with AI into the analysis of the sessions in real time. So I know that there is a blacklist of activities, and an administrator should not run a specific set of commands because there's no activity that would need that. Then I want, if they actually try to do it, like delete star or whatever from the environment, I want them to be kicked out of the session without being able to press enter. So it's not about detecting things, it's about proactive actions before the bad thing would happen, by analyzing the risk score of the session through the actions that are performed in the session. Now, CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management, and CSPM or CNAM, it's all about the visibility into multi-cloud, because we are running both Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud, and it's the customer choice, or where do they want to reside. We do not have, or take the customer to a specific road. It's their choice. I want to have a subscription, or dedicated subscription around Azure hyperscaler, or it's GCP, or it's AWS. Having the same visibility end to end and being able to actually drive that visibility left to right and get specific insights, attack path scenarios, how would things could go from left to right, and then including connecting the management plane. And I would say that layer gets really well connected to what we call red teaming or purple teaming, into finding different patterns that could go laterally, and then trying to actually adversary test those to see how this can or cannot be successful by doing lateral movement in our environment. And network security, it's probably again, it looks simple. It's about having some segmentation there and segmenting between micro-segmenting between prod and dev and QA, and running different traffic flows between these layers. But if I'm thinking about the future of network security, and what we are trying to look at is, how can we dynamically learn from the network traffic the types of communications that we have and the types of communication that we need to actually understand if maybe in the near future can we move out from what we call network security groups, application security groups, firewalls that actually are really intensive in this area of the environment? And can we, with AI technology at the network level, predict and in the end immediately run or create policies that could influence how the traffic flows and give protection based on what's happening in the network? So just even some ideas for the future. And I stop now, give it back to you, Jay, for the last part.
Thanks, Roland. That was great. And so what I want to talk about is how SAP Global Security and Cloud Compliance provides the overall framework in which Roland operates and actually makes security happen. So the central security organization is several hundred people governing how SAP manages cyber and physical security risk, as well as governs the adherence to policies, manages internal and external audits. Part of that is the setting of policies, hardening procedures, etc., of how software gets and services get produced in the company, but also governs all of the areas that you see on the slides. For instance, the central vulnerability management, threat protection, secure operations, cloud security posture management, network security, and security monitoring is ultimately governed centrally, and then distributed and federated through the different lines of businesses, including Roland, where he's one of the key partners, of course. So what this is trying to do is make sure that we have ultimately visibility across the entire estate. So that goes about our enterprise IT, but also all of the cloud landscapes, both in hyperscaler partners, as well as run by SAP directly, as well as the security of our data centers that we manage ourselves, and the security of our employees and events that we run. So that's pretty comprehensive, because it's, of course, very important that we protect RISE with SAP, but we also protect the entire modular Cloud ERP that comprises all of the solutions that fit around it, as well as the secure operations that we have across the different lines of businesses. The compliance aspect is a really important part. So we first have our NIST CSF framework that helps us to figure out where and how well we manage risk in particular areas. And from there, we pick the audit controls or the standard controls that are relevant for SAP as an organization as a whole. Those are translated into policies, hardening procedures, processes, and central services that explain and facilitate being compliant, or how these controls ultimately get fulfilled. And our compliance side then makes sure that through the governance of these programs, that we actually meet our internal audit requirements, as well as meet our third-party audits that result in like SOC 2 and ISO certification. Lastly, what I wanted to mention to hit the third point that Gabriele also started with is talent development. And so aside from lifting some of the responsibilities out of your hands for managing infrastructure and so on, and security incident response, vulnerability management, etc., is to bring in the people that can actually do the work. So unlike many other organizations, we have the capabilities to train early talent, young talent, interns, as well as keep that education going through the organization as security professionals advance in their career, or through security culture and awareness programs, because ultimately security is everybody's job, to make sure that we keep the company safe as well as that we keep customer landscape safe. With that, I will hand back to our host and see if there's any questions that anybody would like to ask.
All right. So first of all, thank you very much for your great insights to my expert colleagues. And as already announced, let us move over now to the Q&A part. So as already described in the beginning, you, the participants, can feel free to address your questions by including them in the chat window, and we will try to answer them in the best possible way. So I can see that we already do have questions in the chat. So the first one is, looking for more cybersecurity training. There is only a basic course. Any recommendations?
Is the question related to RISE security, or it's a general cybersecurity? You don't know, right?
It's not written here, but maybe the person who's asked the question can add to this in the chat. And yeah, we can also, if there are further resources available, include them afterwards in the description of the video. I think that would be fair as well.
So Jay, we have, and I think that's fair to mention, the trust office, let's say. And I think that there is different access level based on the type of person, if it's a customer or a non-customer individual. If it's a customer individual, the rights, let's say, allow to get more information. If it's a non-customer individual, then you would get access to what is purely public information. There are rights security related documents that are public on Trust Center. There are also overall SAP security documentation that are public. We also have specific, security products that we sell, like the enterprise threat detection, like SAP, the identity management piece, and the GRC piece that have their own, let's say, page and documentation. Yeah, overall, I would say end-to-end SAP security course. I think, I don't know, Jay, if there is anything or any specific recommendation.
I think that's maybe a little bit the challenge, right? Like cybersecurity course where, right? Like you may have found one in the catalog that sort of tries to blanket everything, but you may have more success, for instance, like looking for security in particular applications, whether it's about configuration or user management, or think, for instance, in developer training for BTP platform and the secure use of certificates, secure coding, and so on. So there's probably a whole lot more that you can find if we dig a little bit deeper. And
we also have one
research.
SAP, right? Is that application public or it's internal? The one SAP training app.
Oh, you're asking me a difficult question.
Yeah. There is a platform. There's a one SAP platform.
Security education catalog online, and
there is a lot also public.
Services.
Yeah, and I think
one resource that I wanted to add as well is if you go to SAP Community and look for the Security and Compliance Interest Group, so not topic, but interest group, you'll find a location of blogs where we talk more practically about the things that we do to make SAP, and especially SAP Cloud Services, more secure and compliant. These are things that don't often fit very well into a Trust Center brochure, but as a result can like hit specific topics of how we manage particular things. For instance, part of our CSPM program is also our cloud guardrails that make the cloud accounts in AWS, Azure, GCP, and Alibaba Cloud behave in a more secure by default fashion than if you would just get them straight from the hyperscaler, right? And those are things that first of all, probably interesting to see how SAP do these things, but also how you potentially could apply them yourself. There's a section on how we do exception management, for instance, and you may get some ideas about how that works. There's another one about our asset management. We run millions and millions of cloud infrastructure assets, and keeping those, keeping track of that and making sure who owns that and which part of the organization that belongs to is a really important aspect of keeping things secure. So that's another place that you might want to go to get more information how we run things.
Yeah, so Jen, so that was exactly what I was about to mention, especially because I will provide this presentation to Synad, who will upload it, I think, on the web, so that the last slide, the learn more, will actually provide some of the links that will take you to the community pages where I know that we have a great security and huge security community where you will find trainings also done by our consulting firm that does yearly trainings on security. But because it's such a huge community, there isn't really one training for SAP security in general. I think you will have to navigate into our sap.com community for security and compliance to actually identify some of the trainings that really fit your purpose. I know that there are already some of those. I know that we are keep working on creating new trainings. But yes, the community, the SAP security and compliance community, like Jay, like you said, is a perfect place to find as many informations as possible, and also network with our SAP, with other SAP security professionals, and share best practices and experiences.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So another question is about the availability of the slides. Gabriele, you have kindly already mentioned it. So you, the participants, will be able to access the slides shortly after this session in the description of this video on YouTube. So let's move on. There was another question in the chat, which I will read out loud now. So many customers have their own SIEM solution and often ask if it is possible to directly integrate it with their RISE infrastructure. Is it possible to do this?
Yes, I mean, partially yes, and depends on what the level of integration. So what we offer today in RISE is a service called LogServe, which is an API-based service, so real-time API that you can grab and pull data, pull logs from the RISE environment. There is a service description, so you know exactly what data sources we are talking about, but that's mostly about OS level information, like OS security audit logs, DB security audit logs, application related security audit logs, network flows, web dispatchers. So there's a big list of data sources. What we don't share through these logs are alerts coming in from our security tool sets. So alerts generated into our SIEM will not flow to your SIEM. Alerts generated through our XDR tool will not flow to your SIEM, but data related to the systems itself that you can use to actually generate your view data sets. There is even a strategic co-innovation project that SAP is doing with Microsoft, and there will be an announcement soon about a connector between Azure Sentinel and LogServe from RISE with SAP, so that Sentinel could actually understand out of the box data coming in through LogServe into their own tool. If you're using something different, like Splunk or whatever it's in there, then you need to build your own correlation and your own rule sets based on that raw data. Now, Raven is another initiative we are working on that can also be integrated in your SIEM. Raven is more like a portal that will give you dashboards from the environment. It will be data related to the security score of the environment from vulnerability management perspective or CSPM perspective. There are some partnerships that we built under Raven. For example, Onapsys will be, there is one of our partners from application security level perspective and threat related use cases that would partner with us under Raven. So that will be a dashboard where you can consume this data that will also have an API connector in the backend to pull this into your SIEM. So these are the options, and it's part of my strategy to actually increase the visibility and transparency into, up to a level that is possible to our RISE customers.
Perfect, thank you. So let's move over to the next one, which is there a general difference in terms of security delivery options when comparing RISE for SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition with GROW S/4HANA Public Cloud Edition?
Well, the GROW piece is a SaaS version, let's put it in simple terms, while the Private Cloud Edition is not a SaaS thing. So for GROW, you are not controlling the way let's say the application overall behaves. You are practically owning the data, but it's a SaaS, complete SaaS billing, and all kindly managed by SAP. Now, while in the Private Cloud Edition, as I explained before, our role stops at the client 000. So you immediately actually control all the business clients, all the integrations on that level. There is you have, let's say, more flexibility, but in how you migrate. Our goal as a company is to see, to be honest, everybody going to the clean core, what we like to call it, so that we have predictable golden images, golden standards. We know everything. It's deployed in BTP, so in our business technology platform. So that's the goal of the company. Now, there are customers, depending on how they build their own premise environments, that their transition to that goal needs to go through the private cloud, and most of the big customers somehow still need to have that intermediary step till they actually redesign process by process and make everything to the clean core. So simple terms, I would say GROW is more standardized, and does not allow a lot of customizations, and it comes as a package, giving you actually less responsibilities, while the private cloud comes with more responsibilities on your end, a bit more flexibility, a bit more control, a bit more integration scenarios. The overall security foundation is the same, as Jay explained. So we operate in the same way. There are pieces that the private cloud has on top of the default areas, or what we call premium services, premium features, premium offerings. But from the delivery perspective overall, it's the same. Options are different.
Yeah, and as Roland said, when it comes to standard security processes, CSPM programs, vulnerability management, security incident response, threat detection, RISE and GROW as BTP, as any other line of business, are subject to the same central governance and compliance processes that we have throughout the entire organization.
Perfect, many thanks. So monitoring the chat, I can currently not see any additional questions. So I would like to say a big thank you to our expert speakers for sharing their insights with us today. And also many thanks, of course, to you, the participants. And it would be great to see you again in one of our upcoming sessions in the future. So with that, I wish you a great day and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, the stream is ended.